There we go. All right. Welcome, everybody. It's really nice to see you here. As Matt said, it's exciting to have familiar faces. I know a few of you, but Matt probably knows a lot more because this is really related to what we've been talking about on his course on SaaS sales. Actually, this webinar kind of grew from there. I was talking to one of our classmates called Barima, and I told him a few things I'd learned on email, on cold email and email outreach, and well, it turned into a blog post and then into a webinar. So excited to have you here. And I'm looking forward to share with you everything I've learned in this months.
It's so cool. And that's awesome of you to give back, pal, because you've made such strides, and what you're doing with your cold email right now is incredible. So thank you so much for giving back. I think that's one of the best parts about our community is that people share and collaborate and give back once they achieve those next levels. So great job.
Definitely. Thank you. I think we all should do that. Like, I've never learned about anything related to business better than when it's a founder sharing with me what they've learned. That was the best experiences for me. So hope we can reciprocate those lessons learned. All right, so welcome to this cold email training, everyone. I'm Pau, is Matt. And today we'll be talking about how you can create a sales engine using cold emails. And I wanted to say this right at the beginning because we won't be thinking about emails as a growth hacking exercise or as something you do once and then forget about it. This webinar will be about creating an engine, a process, a funnel, and optimizing it. There. So before we start, I think we should introduce ourselves a bit better. Do you want to start, Matt?
Yeah, sure. So I help software founders and leaders around the world, help them understand how to better generate more leads, how to convert more of those leads into demos and sales calls, and how to close a lot of those. I've done it for quite a while with my own SaaS businesses that I've started and grown and sold. And I love meeting people like Pau and lots of you who are already in the room and several others. And helping them achieve their goals and their wildest dreams. So it's a lot of fun. And I'm super happy to talk to you guys about cold email today. Really looking forward to it.
Thanks, Matt. Well, I'm excited as well. My name is Pau, that's short for Paula. I'm from Argentina. The company is US-based. I work at Palabra, palabra.io. We are running a software to help other early teams, especially founders like you, optimize their customer journeys. I'll talk about that a bit more at the end. But what I'm talking about today is about cold outreach driven sales, because that's what I did since I started working in Palabra. Since I wasn't the technical co-founder, I handled sales and I've learned a lot. I think I worked for like 10 months on our cold email strategy. And I started writing this blog series, Founder's Guide, which is how this webinar came across. So I'll be sharing everything I learned basically as a founder, handling sales, handling marketing, I don't know, team. So if you want to talk about any of those things, I'm always up to it.
Yeah, I recommend you guys all follow that blog series that Pau has. Super great value that she's sharing on her journey. It's awesome.
Thanks. I feel like I didn't tell him to say that. Just wanted you all to know.
No, it's super amazing. It should be shared.
All right. So for this webinar, we thought of a specific audience. This doesn't mean that it will not help you if you're not this person, but wanted to just make sure that we're all on the same page. So we're thinking about using cold emails for selling your B2B solution, software solution. When I started, this was our only lead gen source. So we talk to people directly and try to engage them in conversations. I think that works perfectly if it's the beginning of your journey and you're just figuring out things about your product. But I've met a lot of founders, actually in Matt's course, I've met a lot of founders that already have a system in place. They are getting leads, but they want to start with cold outreach as another traffic channel, let's say it, for lead generation. And this can work for you if it's the first time you have tried cold emails, or if you're trying to improve your ongoing email strategy. This is what we thought, but we wanted to hear a bit from you, because when I created this blog post was actually because I had talked to a couple of founders that didn't even know where to start. And when Matt talks about cold emails in his courses, there are always a lot of questions like, how can I start? What tools can I use? What do you recommend? So I wanted to hear from you. Do you have something specific that you're looking for to get here? Any questions that are bothering you lately, or what's stopping you? If you want to unmute yourself and chat, feel free. You can also answer in the chat, in the Zoom chat.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important when I talk with people, a lot of times they're worried about cold email. They're worried that they might have the wrong situation or might have the wrong tools. So I'd love to know from everybody, why do you worry about cold email? What is your biggest fear about cold email? You can bang it in the chat, or like Pal said, go ahead and unmute. But I think it's really interesting to see what different people think about cold email. Mm-hmm. and why they might, not do it or not employ it fully.
Yes.
For me, if I'll
go ahead, James.
Yeah. I've not wanted to annoy people because I get so many myself. That's not to say I've never done it, but I've not got great, until recently, not got great responses. And also, it doesn't put me in a great frame of mind every time I get a unsubscribe, because I put quite a lot of effort into making sure that the people I reach out to are not just scraped. I do some research into them, and so, but they still seem to respond even to quite personalized looking emails in quite a negative way, and it puts me in a bad state of mind, really. But yeah,
right,
that's one of my reasons.
Yeah.
So Pao, I wanted to ask a question. So just so I understand. So when we talk about cold email, we're talking about an outbound mail campaign of some kind of purchased or procured list. So this is absolutely the opposite to inbound.
Exactly. This is.
It is. Okay.
This is the definition of outbound.
Yeah. So this is be the spammer.
This is the way of not spamming, like addressing to the correct people with a specific value prop, and then you get better answers. People will sometimes think of it as spam, like your audience can think of it as spam, and it might be for some people who aren't having a problem that your software can solve, or that for whatever reason aren't getting your message. But for some people, it is not spam. It is valuable information that comes to them at the right time.
All right. So that's really interesting for me. I think I'm really curious to hear it, because we've never thought about outbound as a marketing strategy. We've always kind of focused on this value-based marketing concept,
Right.
So I'm then very curious to hear how we can use proactive outbound as a strategy.
Yes, definitely.
And I want to emphasize, Dave, sorry, Pal, I want to emphasize cold email. When we say cold email, it can be anywhere from a mass blast to 100,000 contacts, all the way down to one email to a particular contact that you think is a perfect fit. You can eyeball them, you can target them, and you can say, hey, I want to get really personalized and see something on their LinkedIn page, or pull something from an article they've written and really send them a note about why I think I want to work with them, or why we should work together. So even one email to one person that you're really personalizing is technically a cold email. So that's
gotcha.
And kind of the trick is figuring out for your business, your solution, your model, your price point, where should you land? Should you be really more of the spray and pray mass blast, or very, very hyper personalized? Either one can work, or a combination of the two, which Pal's going to talk about coming up. There's some great ways to actually combine and get a lot of stuff that's quite personalized, so it feels like a one-to-one. But there's some different strategies depending on your model.
Right. The examples I'll be telling here, or like the model I built is something in the middle, as Matt said, because our software is has a low price point. It's 45 for the lowest tier and 99 for the middle tier, which is the ones that we're getting. So it didn't make much sense for me to like create a super personalized list and spend too much time prospecting. So I created something in the middle because I wanted to get my message across, and for my prospects to know that I care about their business and their problems, even though I didn't do a bunch of research before. And I'll share how I did it. I can't read the chat. I don't know if there are any more questions.
People are saying, you know, they have a pain area. It's Shashank says creating need and maintaining efficiency metrics.
Mm-hmm. That's great. We'll talk about that right at the end.
Awesome. Dominic says disappointing past performance stops him. You know, the open rates are okay, but click-through is very low. So that's a good one. Thomas Joseph says not getting any response and the fear building up where you think you're wasting your time. Absolutely. If you're not getting any response, it's not working. It definitely feels like that. Bob Mark says GDPR is a concern. So yeah, there's a lot of issues that people have about cold email. Carl is saying it's complicated, creating workflows that support continual improvement from scratch. Yeah, that's scary for sure, Carl.
That's really scary. But what we'll share today is a way that you can make sure everything works at first, like creating a baseline to make sure that messages get to inbox, and then tweak parts of the process to improve it. It's a long process. It took a lot of months for me to actually get better responses, get a systematic, like yes, let's say systematic numbers and statistics, because at first it was like I sent one campaign that got, I don't know, 80% open rate and 10% reply rate, but that was just a one time because I got lucky somehow. So it doesn't work, or at least it didn't work for me if it was a one-time thing. And I started thinking about it as a process, and that was much, much better. So let's dig into it. So as I said, we'll talk about the setup first. If you have an ongoing setup, this can still help you figure out why something could not be working, like your delivery rate mostly. And then we'll talk about how to optimize it. We'll have time for questions in the meantime, but if you have any question that you want answered, now let's say if you have any question and you don't want to forget about it, you can type it in the chat, and Susanna, who's right over there moderating this webinar, she'll read the questions out loud and we'll discuss them when it's time for questions. Awesome. So let's start about how you can set up your email address or your system to get to your prospect's inbox. And I thought about 3 things that you should make sure to get your emails to inbox. The first is domain and address setup. The second is prospecting, and that's what I think it was Craig, one of you said, or Dave, that was buying, he said, buying a list of contacts, and that's definitely one possibility, but I'll show you how to do it so you don't spam and it doesn't damage your reputation. And at last, we'll talk about some tools for email automation. Oh, I had it written down. All right, so the first is so you keep your domain reputation. The second is so to make sure that you do prospecting right and get the real emails of people, so you don't get a lot of emails bouncing that can damage your reputation. And at last, I'll share some tools that you can use to get replies, personalize your message, and not spend too much time sending each email individually. But you can do all of this manually, just so you know. All right, so number 1, address setup. This is very, very important. This is the reason why my cold emails didn't work until I talked to Matt. I think it was on February, and then everything changed. I was using our own domain, my real email, pal@palabra.io, and we damaged it almost instantly. We used it for a month, sent about 2,000 emails or 3,000 emails from my co-founder and my account, and we weren't getting any reads or replies. And then we started like not even getting to inbox with our manual emails, like, I don't know, to a coworker. Actually, I think my first emails to Matt got to his spam folder.
Yeah, and it's very worrisome, because if you ruin your main domain with cold email, then you can't get real emails to real prospects who are already engaged with you and in the pipeline. So not cold, your warm and hot prospects, or your customers. And if you want to email your customers, they're not going to get it. It goes into their spam box too. So it creates a really bad situation. If you can't even contact your prospects, you can't contact your customers, that's not good. So using your own domain, enough people, if they click the little "this is spam," even though it's not, if they click the little "this is spam," then your domain is shot, and that's not good.
Yes. The other thing that, this is my personal preference, I don't know if everyone does it, but yes, I think for cold emails, you should be sending emails from a real person. Like, instead of having, I don't know, team@palabra.io, at least in my experience, emails work better if they come from a real person. Sometimes people look at my name on LinkedIn and then find out that what I'm talking about is real. So it creates more trust than if it comes from something that it's obvious is not real.
I love that one, by the way. I think that's super important, because again, we've talked about it in other areas, other arenas, but people buy from people. So yes. Something that if I got an email from Palabra.io, I'd be like, eh. But if it was like, hey, Pau is sending me an email. Oh, cool. I want to talk to Paula. She sounds nice. Even if I didn't know her, like, that's a person, it feels better.
Right. And if you're the co-founder,
can you make your person Elon Musk?
You
can you name yourself Elon Musk, and maybe you'll be lucky.
Elon Musk @palabra.io. You could. I don't know how that could work. Maybe it's funny and people open it more. Who knows? You could try it.
I wouldn't take a real person, because you might find a lawsuit hitting your door. But and you really want to personalize and get yourself out there, get your name out there. So I would use whoever is your main person, who's the person who's the authority in your organization.
Mm-hmm. Even if you're not sending the emails yourself and someone else is handling it, it could work that it would be best, or at least in our case, it works better if it comes from me or my co-founder.
Correct. So I have assistants who send cold emails, and they all send it under Matt.
Right. I'll share with you our addresses and domain in a bit. But the last thing is warming up the account, and this is very, very, very important. The emails of your prospects, what is it called? The email, well, the tools that they use, like Gmail, for example, they have algorithms that send to spam or promotion if those emails are coming from accounts that haven't been used before. So you want email providers, let's call it, don't remember the exact word. You want those tools to recognize your account as a real account, and that means interacting with other email addresses, like sending and receiving emails, opening them, clicking them. That sounds like a lot of work, but bots can do it for you, and it's pretty cheap. And it takes about 3 weeks until a tool like the one I use is called Warm Up Inbox. There are a lot of them, and you just put play on it, and it starts working. It starts sending. You'll be getting some emails, some replied, and after a couple of weeks, your emails stop getting to spam. I wanted to share with you what happened to our domain. I mentioned that I crashed our domain after using it. I think we used it on December and January and then broke everything. And in February, we started using Warm Up Inbox, and this is what we found. We had 80% of our emails that were sent from my email address, from pau@palabra.io, were getting to spam. And that was every email. That wasn't just cold emails, as Matt said. If I wanted to, I don't know, reply to an inquiry that a user had made, it got to spam still. So it was a big problem. What we did was create.
I'm sorry, Pao. The
Sorry?
reason I do this is because it happened to me too. Like I learned this the hard way a few years ago, and we were sending emails from our regular domain, and boom, it got blacklisted, and it was not good. So I learned it the hard way myself.
Yes, definitely. We were lucky that we weren't blacklisted. I looked it up, and so we could be fixed in a couple of weeks. I think it was a month until I started getting all my emails from my own domain when I stopped using it for cold email, and I used warm up inbox still to make sure that it was getting replies, and it improved a lot. But what I did after February 2020 was set up a different account. It's called pao@palabraflows.io. It's a different domain. And after, I think it was about 3 months using it, it might have been less, like 6 weeks, 2 months. And I'm now getting every email sent to land in inbox. That's really good for delivery rates.
Awesome.
I like eliminated one possibility of what could be going wrong. If no one's opening my emails, is it because it got to spam, or is it because my subject lines could be improved? Now I know it's probably the subject line or probably the first lines or something like that, and it doesn't mean that people aren't seeing them. So I said, as I said, this is our domain. Matt told me something that I wanted to share with you because I think it's a great insight. Use a domain that talks about, that's related to your business, but don't just change the suffix or the suffix. I used to use palabra.xyz, I think, and every email still got to spam, and Matt said it could be because the email provider still read it as the same domain, even if you change the suffix. So think about a domain name that's related to your business somehow, and redirect this link. So when people copy and paste the link into their browser, it takes them to your site. If you do all that, then it's basically the same as using your domain. All right. So for prospecting for any of those who don't know, means basically creating a list of contacts that you'll send emails to. You don't have to do this once. It's usually a process, an ongoing process. You do like 100 and send 100 emails, then 200 or something like that. What I would recommend, if you don't have, if you're not selling to enterprise, so it's more of a numbers game for you, and you don't care about losing a few deals over the course of cold emails, I would recommend using a cheap process like downloading contacts from LinkedIn and using or paying someone like a virtual assistant to enrich that, like to look for their emails, to look for their companies. I'll send you later a blog post of a guy called Lachlan, and he used that process and he describes it pretty well. It didn't make sense for me because once I found apollo.io, they have a database, a B2B database that works great. It has a lot of filters. I really recommend this tool for prospecting. Of course, it isn't 100% accurate. I think no prospecting tool is, but you can try a few. For me, Apollo was the best in terms of cost and quality.
And we use Apollo as well for our company. It works really, really well. So definitely.
Yes, definitely. And the other thing about prospecting that you should definitely do, so you don't damage your reputation or your new domain's reputation, is to validate those emails. Use a tool to validate emails. Even if you're downloading from Apollo, I don't remember if Apollo has its own email validator. What I do is I use an email automation tool, and I validate emails within that same tool. Actually, I think I have this. Yeah. What we do is every week we go into Apollo, we download a list of about 1,000 weekly contacts. We did this consistently for 3 months, and now we're getting a few less contacts, so we're trying a few other strategies, but this works for a while. If you have Yeah, if you have a prospect that can be found, like there are many people that fit your description. For example, for us, it was SaaS businesses, less than 50 employees, and that use some tools. We could get 1,000 emails easily every week. What we did was, what we found a bit later, is that we were getting a lot of bounced emails from Apollo's database. So we started validating each of them using our email automation tool, which is reply.io. And I really recommend their validator. It works really good. There are a lot of other options like zero bounce. Don't know if you've tried any, but for sure, make sure you validate them before sending them.
And I also want to, I know there was a message before about getting unsubscribes. It's definitely unsettling and upsetting when you see unsubscribes happen, but I want you to think about it more positively, because, and I felt the same way. You put a lot of effort into your email. You're hoping that people love it. You're like, oh, this is great. It's going to be so good. And you get unsubscribed. As long as you're in a good range, like a 1% to 2% unsubscribe, that's okay. And it's actually good because it actually cleans your list up. So the rest of your list more cares about what you are doing, what you're talking about, and what you're putting out there. So it's totally okay. Unsubscribes do not hurt the integrity of your email issue. Right. It's totally fine. It's totally normal to get 1% to 2% or so. Don't let it freak you out. Continue to just do what you do. If you start getting to like 10 or 15 or 20%, now we've got problems. But 1% or 2%, no worries.
Definitely. And it's definitely better to send emails and have people unsubscribe, but the ones that don't unsubscribe, it means that they are interested somehow, or they are not bothered by it at least.
And you have more likely to get a higher open rate, which improves your email sendability.
Definitely. Yes. You raise your hand. I don't see your name, sorry.
James. Oh, it's James. James, how you doing?
James.
Okay, so you just talked about reply.io. Mm-hmm. How in practice, because I'm using Apollo.io as well, and I raised this with them in a demo. I said, look, I've heard that we really should validate these emails, but they said, oh, well, just go for the ones that we have validated, or the ones that are like 80% or above. If you just use all of them, then yeah, it's going to be a low score. But if you use just the top end ones, it'll be fine. But if you're still using reply.io, do you have to like export all of those and then import them again, or how does it work on a practical level?
Yeah, we are doing that in a practical level because I used their validated emails, and I still got about 20% that were risky or invalid. I was getting a lot of bounces, sorry. So what I do in terms of practicality is create a list in Apollo, because Apollo doesn't allow you to download everything if you're on the basic plan or on the, I don't know, one of the cheapest tiers. What you can do is create a list with each. It's a kind of a manual process. You can just pay for the custom plan if it makes sense for your business. But what we do, since it didn't make as much sense, is like choose the list of contacts, create a list. That's manual. But once you create that list, you can download it and upload it to Reply, and it's super easy. They automatically find like each of the properties that you download from Apollo, and then validate it there. That way we are getting practically zero bounces. I think it's like less than 1% of bounces.
So because I'm assuming you're then sending the emails from Apollo? From
Reply. I'm sending them from Reply. What you could do if you want to send emails from Apollo is download the list, validate it with something like zero bounce or something that's specific for email validation, and then go back, upload them back to Apollo, creating a list, and then sending a sequence from that list.
Okay. I thought you were doing the whole process in Apollo apart from...
Yes, I wasn't clear about that. You're completely right. I started using Apollo for the whole process but it has some limits on the plan I'm paying for, which is their cheapest, is that $29 a month. It can send from one email address, and I wanted to use multiple email addresses to make sure that I'm not like sending too many emails from one account. That's what I hit the limit, and it made more sense for us to use reply. But if you're okay with using one email, I think that could be enough. And if it's not too many bounces, like if you're only using their validated emails, have you tried doing that? Only using their validated emails?
I have.
And how did the bounces go?
I only did it with less than 100, but it was pretty good, to be honest. It was pretty good.
That could work.
Yeah, I was quite impressed, but we've not done it on a mass scale yet. And we're just about to. I wanted to do this first and sort out the email address, which we're having some issues with. But yeah, but so far it's been really good. Yeah.
All right, that's great. If you're looking to scale, I think once you hit the roof of when it doesn't make sense to use one email address and you have to add more, then you can think about either upgrading to their higher tiers or using another tool. That's what we did.
We're paying $59 a month, so I assume we're one level up.
A bit higher, right?
Yeah.
And I do know that Apollo has different price points in different countries. So
and it tests them, it A/B tests them, because I was on the call with my business partner, and he was saying $99. I was saying 59, so we nailed them at 59, obviously.
Right. we got them. I think we caught them a bit earlier then, and got their 29 a month. All right. So on email automation, as James said, you can use Apollo.io. It does two things at once. What I chose, as I said, I chose to use reply. But what you need to make sure is that any tool that you're using allows you to personalize at least a few variables like first name, company, to automatically follow up to people if they don't respond. I think HubSpot does this too. And to give you some kind of analytics. If you do this manually, you won't get open and reply. Well, reply rates, you can calculate it manually, but open rates are not so easy to know. So I really suggest using some sort of tool so you can know what you're doing, know what's going on, and know where to improve. Oh, and this is very important. At first, like some of these tools, I think this is the example of reply, if I remember correctly, they allow you to choose if you want to use an opt-out link to unsubscribe, or not a link, but a message at the bottom that says, if you want to unsubscribe, let me know, something like that. And what happened is that I was getting a lot of people reporting our emails as spam because they got, I don't know, they got the third one from my sequence and then they just put it as spam. But when I added just the link so that I allow them to opt out without talking to me, without replying to my email, that was much better. And now I got a few unsubscribes, but no reports as spam. That's really, really important, as Matt said. All right, so in summary, and now we'll go over a few questions. 3 things to get to inbox. Set up your domain, warm up your account, use something to create a list of contacts and validate those emails. There are a few other tools. I can send you the details after this, or a list of tools I've used after this webinar, and use some sort of tool that allows you to automate follow-ups and get at least basic analytics so you can improve your process. Anything you want to add, Matt?
No, that's great. If you're doing those things, you're instantly ahead of the game of what most people are doing, and the tools that Paul's using are fantastic. So you're going to be able to get your cold email rocking quick.
Definitely. All right. Any questions about the setup? I'll go and look in the chat. Oh, the LinkedIn automation tool in reply. I haven't tried that. It's working. Has it worked for you, Carl?
Hey,
This we're talking about something slightly different as context, slightly different from instead of using cold email to reach out to prospects, you can use LinkedIn connections and messages.
yeah,
So
it's
you
mixing
tried
up
it?
the steps so you can drop LinkedIn actions into the workflow and create yourself tasks. So you can send out an email, then you can set yourself a task to follow someone on LinkedIn, and it takes you straight to their profile if you use the reply Chrome extension. So you're basically tapping through the tasks, is bringing up their LinkedIn page. You can do a follow, then later on in the sequence, it's send them a message. You can put that message with personalization into your sequence, and then you just get that flashing up as you go through the tasks on the Chrome extension. Copy and paste that. It brings up everything in LinkedIn for you. So it's super. I was doing that manually, man, and it takes so long to
Right.
copy, paste, do all of that stuff. The reply tool is amazing for that. It's really, really good. Saves a huge amount of time.
That's
Can I
great.
just
That's
ask
great to
Carl a
know.
question on that, if you don't mind? But because I was using, oh God, another system that did the same. But if they wouldn't receive the invite or something like that, or there was a problem with LinkedIn, it would just stop the whole process. Does it just jump over that?
I'm not pretty sure.
Yeah, it pauses at that process. It's got no way of there's no direct connection between reply and LinkedIn, so it doesn't necessarily know if you've done that. So if you manually complete the task or batch complete the tasks, then it moves things on. But the dashboard's pretty good for flagging up where you are or anything that's blocking the process or any problems that are coming up. Because I was going to use Apollo for doing my sequencing, and then I took a look at Reply for the validation, and it's just such a great tool. Also the AI tools it's got in there for tweaking your emails to kind of really kind of fine tune your copywriting are pretty handy as well.
Yes, definitely. All right, we have a question from Dominic saying that they use Soho campaigns that sends from a Soho server, where they add those domain settings, SPF and DKIM. I've never said them out loud. This is the first time. So that recipient's mail server see it as linked to our domain. My experience is that it's worked for me. It has worked. Actually, Palabra at first used to be an email automation tool, and we used Mailgun servers to send out our emails. It didn't damage our reputation because the actual server, like the domain attached to a server, was a specific from Mailgun. It did work, but at the time, it was easier for me when I was doing cold outreach, just cold emails, to create a new email and not use that same server. If Soho has it integrated or your tool has it integrated, I'd say use it. What are your thoughts, Matt?
So actually, if you're using it for regular communications with your prospects, it's okay to use your CRM, but I would not use your CRM for cold email for two reasons. One, it will link to your domain, and it's going to if you are sending cold stuff, your CRM company can get really mad at you. HubSpot in particular is very aggressive about this. If you send cold from HubSpot, they'll kind of come after you a little bit because they do say in their terms you can't be sending cold stuff from here. So I would not send cold from there because of that. Secondly, and also because it's going to hurt your domain, because it is your domain that it's going to look at. And secondly, if you put all your cold contacts into your CRM company is going to start charging you for all those contacts. And so your cost will go up because now you have more contacts in the database. So put all your cold contacts into somewhere else, like an Apollo or a Reply. And then once they get warm and they do actually reply to you, now you can move them into your CRM to start trying to work them through your pipeline. So for multiple reasons, I would not use your CRM for your cold email.
What we used to do is use our CRM for cold email responses. Like once they replied, and then we took them as leads. Then they entered our CRM. We were using HubSpot at the time. And that was much better because replies are much more validated, and those are interested prospects that want to talk to you.
Yep, perfect.
All right, do we have any other question? Let me look through.
I've got one whilst you're having a read. When you set up a separate email address, do you then say, well, if someone replies to that email address, it forwards to your normal one? Because then it will go to your CRM. Because if you want to like deal with all of your day-to-day emails with people who are interested or anyone else, but you want your other system that does cold outreach, and that goes from a separate email address, is that okay, or does that get flagged or anything like that?
Don't know if you have an answer, Matt. I can answer from my experience doing exactly that. I use multiple domains. Even I have multiple addresses. Like I have Pau at Palabra Flows, Paula at Palabra Flows, Paula.alcalá at Palabra Flows, multiple versions of my name. And it actually helped me. What I did was resend or forward every mail to one of those addresses. So I don't have to look at each 3 of them, but I use one. I think it's Pau at Palabra as my main cold outreach address, and it's helped me like know where to focus. I know that at my personal address, I'll get something from. I'll probably get messages from users, but if I want to put my time into talking to leads, then I have them all on my Palabra Flows email. And people usually don't mind or don't really remember if afterwards my Calendly, for example, is with my personal email. I never had any problem with that at all. And since if they put on their browser Palabra Flows, it redirects them to our landing page, then it makes sense. It's clear that it's all the same.
Oh, I thought you said that if you redirect to your normal landing page, then the email servers will see that email as the same.
Didn't happen from me. Do you know, Matt, if that's...
No, yeah.
Maybe I misunderstood that earlier.
I think what I meant, in case I might have said it in a way that got confusing, I meant that for prospects, when prospects look at your email address and if they click or if they try to look for your landing page with your other domain than the one that you created for cold emails, you want them to know if they log into that, they put it in the browser and to have it redirected so they know it's a real thing. I sometimes type in the domain of cold emails I get, and they don't send me to anything, and that's kind of weird. It doesn't really tells you to trust them.
Yeah, it's a 301 redirect. So whatever your cold email domain is that you're using for cold email, just set up a redirect so that if people actually type that in, they're like, well, who is this person? They go type it in, then it goes right to your main website. But it doesn't, the email address, the email servers won't link that to your domain. You'll still be okay.
Yes. We have a couple of questions. I'd like to go through a few pretty quickly because we don't have a lot of time. We can go like 10 minutes over time if you can, and this will be recorded. So I'm not too worried, but I'll go over these questions a bit quicker. So as you said, how important is signing up for Never Bounce to reduce email bounce rate, even if we send email to a small list? I'd say it's not as crucial if you're sending to 100 or 200 emails at a time, but still try to use as many validated emails as you can. What James mentioned about using Apollo's own validator, for example, it's a very good example, but try to reduce bounces as much as possible because it's pretty easy to damage the domain reputation. We'll talk about subject lines in just a bit. And Vlad said, are you warming up your email while using it? Yes, it works at the same time. The only bad thing is that you're receiving a lot of unreal emails, but they're kind of funny, and I just delete them all, and it's not much of a problem for me.
I have a filter, so all of them have a specific few letters in them, and they all have the same few letters. So you just have a filter, so it automatically puts it into a different inbox, different folder.
Yes. Yes. Vlad had also asked. Sorry, someone trying to say something. Oh, all right. Someone also, Vlad also asked, why don't I use automation from Apollo?
Oh, can everybody mute? Okay, thanks.
Thanks. I think I answered why I don't use Apollo's email automation tool. It's because of the limits of how many accounts you can use to send emails. But they have like this. They change their pricing and their limitations. So make sure you check that out.
He said he's good there, but Vlad does have another question. He's sending emails to large companies. They have a catch-all, accept-all status. Are you talking, Vlad, like they have an info@ email address, or they have like a sales@, and that's what you're sending to? Is that what you mean?
No, I'm saying that most of those emails, like let's say matt@puma.com or matt@nike.com. And if a company like Tommy Hilfiger has one email that is catch-all, then I'm pretty sure that all of those emails within a company would be catch-all. And there are a lot of those companies that don't have, validate 100% sure valid emails because of their server settings.
All right, so they will still bounce even if they are the real emails. They won't work. The validators won't work. Is that what you're saying?
Actually, yeah, validator doesn't work because it's impossible to validate those emails.
Right. Well, in that case, what I would do is reach out over LinkedIn. If you're targeting a specific company, there are multiple ways where you can reach out. And once you get into one conversation with one of those people, then there are ways of getting to the right person to talk to. I don't know if Matt, you have any other suggestion?
Yeah, if you're trying, I love going multifaceted approach. So if you're targeting big companies, you should do more than just one thing. And this is kind of, we're getting outside of just cold email, we're getting into more of an ABM, an account-based marketing strategy, where you're doing a lot of different ways to touch the same person and to touch multiple people within the same account. But if you're are you trying to find their email address convention? Like, is it first name @ is it first name dot last name @ is that what you mean, Vlad?
No, I'm using Apollo to source their emails, and then I'm trying to verify them using zero bounce or debounce or any other service. And on those services, I see that these emails are catch-all or accept-all. So I was chatting with their support, and they told me that it happens due to server settings on a company side. So let's say Tommy Hilfiger, all of those emails are catch-all. So there are no emails that could be verified.
And does it happen to you with all your lists? Because what I'm thinking is if you've sent to like 50 people and some of them bounce, it won't hurt your domain reputation that bad. If it happens with every contact you'd like to send emails to, then that's a different scenario.
So it really depends for me. I believe half of companies have such problem with validating their emails.
I think what Matt said about account-based marketing or sales, if you target each company at one time, and then you want, if you send like, I don't know, 50 or 100 emails and some of them bounce, it won't hurt your reputation as bad. I wouldn't do it every week or like with 1,000 emails. But if you're trying to get into Tommy Hilfiger, for example, specifically, then you can definitely just try it. If Apollo validates them, not all of them will bounce. Some of them will get to inbox.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right. So what time is it? We have
we got to rip through
15 minutes. Yeah, I think this was the most technical section. The other one, I have some suggestions, and we can, I don't know, do another webinar for when it's time for whoever wants. to continue this conversation. But I wanted to go over how to how to think about optimization with cold emails. I'll go over pretty quick. It's not as technical as what we were talking about earlier, and we'll leave like 5 minutes for questions. All right, so the cold email funnel is basically, it's a pretty basic funnel. The way I think about it, what you need is for emails to get delivered, like not bounce, get to inbox. That's all the setup that we've been talking. Then you want people to open your emails and read them. Then you want, and that's where subject lines come into action. Then you want them to reply, and that's the copy, the message of the email, where that will change your reply rate, and eventually get from cold emails to demos or to free trials or whatever your next step on the sales funnel is. And to optimize and get more demos out of your emails, you have to optimize each step of the funnel differently. So let's look over them pretty quickly. All right, that was the same thing that I had just said. So on getting people to read them and to open them, as I said earlier, it's basically two things: getting your targeting right, like knowing what group of people you're sending your emails to, the subject line, and the first couple of, I think the first sentence of your email should talk to them specifically. If you're targeting, I don't know, if you're selling a solution for a sales team, and then you accidentally or even on purpose send it to the whole company, then probably people won't open it if it doesn't talk to them, to their pains, to what they care about. What I do in Palabra is create separate sequences with different subject lines, depending on if I'm talking to someone, for example, on customer support, or a founder or a technical founder, and I have different subject lines and different copy for each of those prospects, even if the solution I'm selling is exactly the same, but they have slightly different pains. And on subject lines, I actually read about this online a lot, but I learned that there are two lessons. One, keep it short, no more than 6 words or 7. And the second is just test it audience specifically. What I did for all those months was A/B test. Reply allows you to A/B test. Actually, we used to send 4 versions of the email where we just changed the subject line. So the open rate depended specifically on that because everything was the same. And that allowed us to quickly iterate on the subject lines until we got something that usually works well.
Beautiful.
These are the subject lines I tried in the past. They are in chronological order. And I wrote down what I was thinking about when I tried this subject line. There are many more, of course, but these were I think the most representative ones. The first thing I tried when I started cold emails was a very basic, easy one. I just wanted to try and see what happened. Just typed question. That was the subject of the email, and it actually worked pretty well. I think it was because the first sentence of my email was really I don't know, really transparent. I was like, I want to learn from what you do, and it was true because we were just building out our features. But eventually it stopped working. Once I had a clear solution and a value proposition to share with them, then it didn't make sense to start with question. I tried using our competitor's name on the subject, and it worked awesome. People love this email. It worked really, really good because we're not exactly a competition to Full Story, rather like a add-on or something that you can do besides using Full Story. And we were getting replies like, yeah, I had Full Story too. I had the same thing about Full Story. This is not what it was meant to do, and I'd like to hear about your solution. This is one example. Then I read that it was better if you added a question, so I started testing a few questions on the subject line. But the thing that worked best, at least for us, was adding the company name into the subject. I tried with the name of the person, of the recipient, and it didn't work as well. It came off as too salesy, but the company name did bring their attention. It depends. I think it depends on your company, on your value proposition, on your target audience. I'd say the best thing is to A/B test or ABCD test every subject that you use, and then keep finding what's best.
The other thing that I found works really well is putting numbers or data in, like 43% of, so to use Dominic's, dentists say this, or 28% efficiency, question mark, like combine both, like data and a question, and have them, well, what does that mean? What do you mean 28%? And get them to, all you're trying to do with the subject is just get them to look at the email, right? Like that's all the subject, that's what it is. Just get them to open the email. And then the email, hopefully you have your copyright so that it gets them to take action, but we just need them to open it. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Exactly. Yeah, I won't go into detail with our sequence. The best, as I said, the best subject line for us was about companies' product-led growth. That's the best working email that we have across all of our sequences. All right. The second thing, as Matt said, is once they read it. So once you went through your subject lines and people are opening your emails, now you want them to reply and to become leads on your sales process. I have a few tips. I shared them on my blog and on my blog post, and I can send you more of those templates I've used. But they're basically two things that I've learned, or three things that I've learned. The first is that it should be really short, especially the first email. People won't read like long chunks of text. They just won't read it. They will, I don't know, look at it pretty quickly. And if it's just 1, 2, 3 sentences and it looks short and it talks about their pains, their values, then they will read it through. The other thing that I learned, this is from another blog post from a founder, is to have a small ask. I usually get cold emails that say, hey, want to meet next Wednesday or something like that. And it's like, whoa, I don't know you. I don't know if this solution will work. Why would I want, like, people have to be really, really interested in what you're offering to them to just jump in a call. I talk about choosing some time for a call, but that's until like my third email, or for people that reply. Once they reply, they are interested, they want to know more, then I offer them my Calendly for a demo or something like that. This is our copy. I just want to highlight 3 things. This is the I think one of the best performing email that we have. It starts off as friendly as possible, pretty transparent, like, hey, sorry to bother you, but I think it will make sense for you. This is why it will make sense for you. This is our value proposition. It will help you grow revenue. Who doesn't want to grow revenue? So it talks about their goals as founders. I have a really small ask in all of my sequence. Mind if I send more info? People usually reply either with a simple yes, or yes, I'm interested, or if they are really interested, they will go ahead and say, maybe they book a demo from the landing page, or maybe they reply and say, sure, where can we meet up? But it's up to them. And it doesn't like off-put people that aren't as interested. They don't want it right now, but it sounds good. They still reply. Oh, and I have the opt-out link. I really recommend you having it too.
And the thing I love about this, a couple things, like right away, I'm Paula, like right there, it's like very personal. It's like, hey, it's just 2 people here having a conversation. And then at the end, mind if I send more info? Ending in a question is always good. People were naturally conditioned to want to reply to questions. So ending in a question gets them to want to reply and say, yes, please do, or no, I'm not interested. Whatever it is, either is good. And it's really important to get that question towards the end. I love doing that.
A specific call to action, something that they should do when they finish reading that email. So if it's replying to you, then a question so that they can reply, they know what to reply.
And it's so easy, right? One reply and say, yes, please send, like done.
Exactly.
Go through a lot of big steps.
Exactly. And lastly, to get more demos, what I did and what I really recommend is to measure your funnel, measure how many emails are getting delivered, open, replied, and how many of those are converting to demos, especially if you're using more than one channel. Measure the channel of cold emails or cold outreach separately so that you know if it's working for you, if it's getting you the right demos or not. Matt has the sales scorecard that I used. Like I used it to put on the cold email part at first, and it really helped me. We'll talk about that in like 2 minutes or 1 minute. But make sure to measure it to know what's changing. The other thing I would recommend is for your best performing demos, the one that worked great, what was their role? What was their value proposition? Or what was the pain that they were having? And learn from those demos that worked great to improve them, go back and improve your campaigns. And that gives you a consistent growth week over week or month over month. This is not a growth hacking exercise. As I said at first, it's about continually and systematically improving some parts of your process until eventually it gets you to better demos. This is our journey from January to here. We have been slowly but consistently growing, and at the same time using some other channels so that we get more than 5 demos a week. I would recommend measuring each of those separately, as I said.
I love
Anything
it.
else?
Demo a day from cold is amazing.
Yes, it was, and it's consistently working. I'm pretty impressed about this. I had read that cold emails work for a short amount of time, like for a month or 2 months. For us, that wasn't the case. All right, so we've talked about optimizing the entire funnel for cold emails. Make sure the setup is working so that you get emails delivered. Iterate your targeting and your subject line so that people open them. Then iterate on copy as well. Focus on their pains, their value propositions, and have a small ask so that they reply. And then to get more demos, you have to learn from those demos that you achieve using cold emails, and then go back into the process and improve each part of the funnel, of the system. All right, before we get into questions, because I know Matt has to leave, I wanted to move like for the what now part. I think that makes sense, Matt. And then we'll have some time. If you have to leave, just go ahead, don't worry. All right, so how does this fit? I thought about how this could work for you. Now that you've learned a bit about how to start or to improve your cold outreach engine so that it consistently brings you leads. To start, I will send you a setup checklist. If it's your first time, or if you want to think about things that can be improved to get your emails to inbox, we have a checklist, and we'll send it to you after this webinar. I'll also send you the webinar recording. So if you have any details that you missed, you can go through them again. And then to track your sales funnel and see if it's working right, Matt offered to share his SaaS scorecard. You can download them. It's basically it's a spreadsheet, right? Or do you want to?
Yeah, it's a SaaS metric scorecard that I developed when I was building out my SaaS companies. It made it really easy for us to track our efficiencies within our sales process, our conversions within the sales process. It's something that normally I give to our clients when they get started, but Pal said, hey, what can you share? So I wanted to share that with all of you as well. So I have, I don't know if you want me to put that in the chat or if you want to send that by email, Pal.
We can do both. If you want to put it in the chat now so people can start downloading it, we'll still send the link on our email after this webinar.
Perfect. Yeah, I just threw that out. So you can go there and download it and get that SaaS scorecard and start tracking everything.
Yes, definitely. And at last, once you get, if you want to worry about after those emails work and after you get demos, after those demos sell, and you want to optimize something for your users or your prospects, I would love to talk about that. That's what we're solving with Palabra. And we are still building out a few features to help you optimize customer journeys for SaaS. So if you have any questions, thoughts, problems, and would like to go through them, here's my email. I will also send you my Calendly link on this email after this webinar. So you feel free to book some time to chat. All right. Now we have a few minutes for questions. I can go over time a bit, but I wanted to thank you all for coming. This has been great. I'm really excited it was really excited to hear your questions, your experience. Thanks for sharing all of that. I had a great time. Thank you, Meta, as well.
Likewise, I had a lot of fun. It's great. I love the processes you've put in place, pal. You guys are doing awesome stuff, and I'm glad that we were able to share it.
Yes, definitely. All right. So
we have a question from Carl. He asks, how do you set up your sequences in Reply? Do you create new sequences for each improvement or modify existing ones and add new prospects into them?
That's a great question. Actually, we're just talking about that with Susana, because we're doing she's the one sending out reply campaigns. And when I started, I was testing a lot of things, as I said. So I created new sequences each week. I wanted to see how that changed. I didn't want to go into the data like too deeply, and I wanted quick insights. So I created about 3 sequences every week, 1 for each email address. That allowed me to quickly iterate. But once I got things working, and now that we know that this subject line works great and this specific target works great, now we're like reusing the same sequences, because it made sense for us to have it all on the same place, not have it all scattered around. I wouldn't recommend modifying existing ones, though. If you want to make changes, do it in another sequence so that you know if it made an impact. It's easier to know if it made an impact. And Anish asks, which service would you suggest, ActiveCampaign, Reply, or MailerLite? I use Reply and I really, really recommend it. I haven't tried ActiveCampaign or MailerLite. Have any of you tried it?
Yeah, so I have ActiveCampaign. I have it for me with my coaching and consulting business. I think it works great for that. I do not recommend ActiveCampaign for SaaS businesses. It just doesn't have the opportunity capability tracking. Better options. ActiveCampaign is more of a CRM. It's not quite competitor with Reply. So better CRMs would be HubSpot or Pipedrive. I would recommend, but Reply for what Pal's talking about on cold email is fantastic.
Yeah, there are other tools specifically for outreach. I think it's Outreach.io. I've heard works great. I haven't tried it myself, but I would use a tool that's specific for cold outreach. They have some features like keep sending emails if they don't reply, and not every CRM has it so clearly. Yeah. Shashank asks, how much is too much in case of cold email outreach for a particular client? Are you selling to enterprise or like to a specific company? Or is it like blasting emails, sending like 3 emails in one sequence? Personalized email. What I've read sequences of up to 7 emails. If each, well, actually like more than that, but one that worked with 7 emails, where each of those emails added extra value. It wasn't just, hey, following up, hey, following up, hey, following up, but keep saying new things like, hey, we created this event, you can come, or hey, we just had a big client join us, read their use case. If it makes sense to keep receiving emails, they won't mind or they will unsubscribe. What I wouldn't do is sending a lot of follow-ups with no extra content or extra value.
Totally agree. But most people do stop too early. So if you keep going and try different approaches, mix cold email in with some LinkedIn, in with some some other ways of reaching out. Maybe found them on Facebook if that's within your market target. So, find different ways to get to them, because maybe the email is not the best, but hitting them from multiple angles can be great.
Definitely. I wanted to say one more thing. Don't be afraid of bugging people. They know you're just doing your job, and if you're transparent and honest about the content that the solution that you're selling, the worst thing that can happen is that they unsubscribe or they reply. I had some replies like, "Please stop emailing me," and that's fine. I'll just remove them from our contact list, and that's enough. James, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah. You were asking if anyone's used MailerLite. I am using it at the moment, but only for our release updates to customers. But also we want to do it quarterly, so that kind of goes in with another question, which was what I wanted to do and what I've tried to do for a long time, and this has been one of the things stopping me, was I wanted to set up a sequence that was however many long, whether it gets to 7 emails or not. But then once they drop off that and I've just had no response, I'd like to then stick them on the quarterly. So they just keep on hearing about us. They see what we're doing as a business and what new features are coming out and that sort of thing. And then maybe just throw in, if they're still tagged as a cold recipient, rather than someone who said, yeah, keep in contact with me, then we drop in a sales email every now and then. But so we're using MailerLite for the product updates, and we will use them for the quarterlies, but I don't know how to, move people from, whether it's reply.io or I've forgotten the name now.
Apollo?
Apollo, thanks. Yeah.
Do you have
a solution for that?
Yes, we were just thinking about this with Susanna, because what happened to us is that our target became so specific that we're not getting a lot of new leads. So we're reusing and recycling our contact base that we already have in Reply, that maybe we send them an awful email in like November. And what we're doing is creating a system that if people show interest somehow, maybe opening it, clicking something, or specifically if they reply, then we send them to different campaigns. So maybe if they open every email, we try a new cold sequence. We don't send them like nurturing campaigns or product updates. We keep on cold, sending them cold messages. But as they reply or click on things, then they start moving to other nurturing sequences. If people reply at some point, I think it's safe to send them, even if they say, I don't know, Sherlock's interested, and then never said anything, then keep sending them product updates to keep on top of their mind. I think that's a good idea.
That makes sense. Cool.
Yeah, agreed. And I see Carl is asking, do you see lead magnets working with cold outreach? Absolutely. So again, test it out, see what works best. But again, if you put out, hey, and remember, it goes back to knowing your market. If you know your market has particular challenges, and you say, hey, are you facing this struggle? Because if so, I have a guide or a spreadsheet or whatever that makes it easy for you to solve that. Would you like me to share it with you? Right? So like Pau's email ends, would you like some more information? This is, would you like me to share that with you? Would you like that? And people are like, yes, I'd love that guide. That would help me. I'd love to save all kinds of time knowing this information. Great, I'll send it, and you send it. Now you've got their information. But remember, lead magnets do two things. One is the lead magnet gets their email, which you already have their email. So the other thing is it gets them into your funnel and gets them started. So it's really important that if you're going to do that, you make sure that you're getting them into the funnel and starting them down the path towards deeper and deeper commitment, if you're going to take that approach on somebody you already have the email for.
Another thing I thought that you could do is add them as one of your follow-ups. So if they don't reply to the first email where you're trying to engage them in conversation or get them to a demo, then the third could be, hey, just wanted to send you this thing that we did, thought it would be useful. And that's one of your follow-ups to keep on top of their mind.
Yeah, and Ian just asked, does adding industry news in follow-ups make sense? Yes. So like Pau said, you want value, give value. Because if you're just purely like take, hey, I want to do this. I want you to book a demo. I want you to do this. I want you to buy our product. They're not going to like that. But if you're like, hey, I just saw this news article come out about this big thing that's happening in the industry. Is that important for you? If so, here's a link to it. I think this might help you. And if you're giving help, if you're giving value and showing you care about solving their problem, people are much more likely to want to chat with you.
Definitely. All right. I think we could go hours talking about the details of copy and cold email and the system, because there are many things that we can improve, like slightly different improvements. What I would say is, well, my email is working great. So you can send me an email if you have any other questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them. You can also connect with both Matt and I on LinkedIn, and we can just keep this conversation going. If you're interested in something specific like copy or something like that, I can put together a short video or something that makes more sense. But yeah, would love to keep this conversation going. We have no more time, but this goes beyond the webinar. So thanks a lot for being here. Hope this helped give you like an overview of what you can do to improve your cold emails. And we'll be happy to chat more.
Awesome. This was great, Pau. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. It's been great. And hope you have a great rest of the day, Matt, since you started early.
Hey, thanks, guys, for sharing your information. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks,
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, Pau. Cheers, Matt.
Thanks, Pau.
Bye-bye.
And thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Cheers.
y'all.
Bye.
Bye.